Welcome to DBC. Today we're continuing with nonviolent communication. And we've been through the four sort of processes of how to speak in a nonviolent or compassionate way. And today we're going to move on to, there's two chapters about empathy, and this is really about the other half of communication that Rosenberg mentions, where it's listening, right? So how do we listen empathically? And I'd like to start with a little bit so we've talked about expressing ourselves honestly and what that looks like. And then now it's like, well, how to hear that from someone else. And Rosenberg mentions that we should really resist the temptation to problem solve, which we talked about before, specifically in motivational interviewing and other books, and to really listen and to resist the urge to intellectualize and to figure out what's going on, but to stay with the person that we're speaking with and see what they're going through. So the first section of the chapter, he talks about, like, don't just do something, stand there. So really just stop and listen. And then according to the model that Rosenberg proposes, of course, we're asking, okay, we're hearing maybe threats or anger, but what's going on beneath that? What are the needs and emotions that are going on? So the idea here behind intimidating messages are merely people appealing to us to meet their needs. And again, to empty our mind to others with our whole being, be open to others with our whole being. And no matter what, this is him sort of summarizing the first chapter, no matter what words others may use to express themselves, we simply listen for their observations, feelings, needs, and requests. Observations, feelings, needs, requests. And then we can then reflect back via paraphrasing. So it's kind of using our own words to say what we've heard from them. And when we stay with empathy and being an empathetic listener, we allow others to fully express themselves and be more open to us. And then we can bring our attention to requests or solutions if it's appropriate. So at the end of each chapter, I haven't mentioned this yet, but at the end of each chapter, he gives a lot of like a little quiz sort of to see if we're on the same page as he is. So here's an example that he gives at the end of this chapter. He says, person A would say, I've been a nervous wreck planning for my daughter's wedding. Her fiance's family is not helping, and every day they change their minds about the kind of wedding that they would like. Person B responds, so you're feeling nervous about how to make arrangements, and you would appreciate it if your future in-laws could be more aware of the complications their indecision creates for you. And he notes this as an appropriate response. And then I'll give you one that's one that he thinks should be tweaked. So that would be person A. When my relatives come without letting me know ahead of time, I feel invaded. It reminds me of how my parents used to disregard my needs and would plan things for me. Person B says, I know how you feel. I used to feel that way too. So they're meaning well here, and they're attempting to empathize. But what he says is that I didn't circle this one because I see person B assuming they understand, and talking about their own feelings rather than empathically receiving what is going on for person A. So in reflecting back what they had said themselves. And he talks about the power of empathy. And another thing is that this was mentioned again in an earlier book we covered, but that from a time perspective or efficiency, that speaking in a nonviolent communication or compassionate communication way does not take any longer than jumping in and judging and doing a totally different way, but it will have drastically different results. And at the end of this chapter, he talks about there we go. So again, empathy is our ability to be present with both parties' feelings and needs, so both our own and the other person's. And that being empathetic he goes through several things in the second chapter, which is called the power of empathy. And it allows us to stay vulnerable, which allows for more openness back and forth when there's vulnerability. So it can diffuse potentially violent situations. We can hear someone saying no to us without taking offense or taking it as a rejection of ourselves. We can reuse it to revive lifeless conversation. He talks about boring conversations and how to change those. And he says that even as a speaker, you can say like, hey, I'm sorry, like in the middle of you interrupt yourself in the middle of your own sentence, and you can say, hey, this is, not really meeting my needs and I'm feeling this. How are you feeling? Boom. And you can do it either way, interrupting too. And we can even hear feelings and needs that are expressed through silence. And that was another one that's pretty cool. Talks about a client that wouldn't speak at all and how he worked with her. And again, listen to feelings and needs behind the actions that are maybe frightening to us initially, and then people will cease to be monsters if that's how we're seeing them, dealing with people that are even the most extreme. So that is what he has to say about empathy and how it has to do with receiving nonviolent communication as opposed to the own words that we say. And we'll continue next time.